Good evening. I am the Maven of the Eventide, and welcome back to my vampire library full of vampire books and things of a spooky, dark, and creepy gothic nature. In a fun way. Did you all have happy holidays? Happy gift-giving holidays? I know I sure did, because I received so many vampire books between Halloween and Christmas time and everything since the last time I came to you with vampire books, which was last summer already. It's been a while. We have a lot to catch up on. You can't see it here, but I have vampire books stacked all the way down to here and then two more equal stacks down. So we're going to go through them. Again, not in any particular order, mostly arranged by what will not make the stack fall over. Did you get vampire books for the gift-giving holidays? Tell me in the comments what vampire books you got, because if I don't have them yet, I need to add them to my wish list. Some of these vampire books were sent to me by you to my P.O. box. A lot of times people will send me their old vampire books they're getting rid of, or if they find books at used bookstores. There are a lot of vampire books that aren't in print anymore, but people have old versions of them that they send to me. Also, brand new vampire books that people just want me to read, they want to know my opinion of, or they want to submit for our vampire book club, where the purpose of it is to read through all these vampire books together with you, so I don't have to read them alone, and we can talk about the vampire books together, because if you don't read them with me, no one will. A lot more of them were sent to me by my family for Christmas, because they know what I like. The Golden by Lucas Shepard, a sensual novel of vampires and bloodlust. Well, it had better be a used copy. This came out in 1993. Congregation of Vampires. They are beautiful, powerful, and immortal. They are members of the family, capital F, of the race of vampires, and they have gathered at Castle Banat to discuss their fate. Some are committed to their cruel, erotic, scarlet past. Others look to the future, hoping to evolve a new aristocracy of the spirit. But in this gothic netherworld of underground canals, arched chambers, and crumbling statuary, ooh, I like it. I want to go to there. A murder has been discovered that cannot go unpunished, even among the creatures of the night. A murder that pits the family's most powerful members against each other in a titanic struggle for domination. Now it is up to one young vampire, Michael Bahim, to catch the killer, even as he discovers the unfathomable depths of darkness in his own immortal soul. Sensual, lyrical, and stunningly original, Lucas Shepard's novel has added a new and terrifying dimension to the timeless myth of the vampire. For our current session of Vampire Book Club, we had wanted to read a mystery novel. So I had put up 3 vampire mystery novels for a vote, and one of them won, but if I had had this one at the time, I probably would have put this one up for that vote instead of one of the others that I put, and maybe this one would have won. So it'll have to go into the testing for next time. The Utterly Uninteresting and Unadventurous Tales of Fred the Vampire Accountant by Drew Stays. This is a novel that I've been hearing about for years. People ask me about it all the time, ask if I've read it, tell me it's very funny and very good, and I've heard a lot of good things about it, so it's been on my wish list for a while. And this year, my father chose it off the wish list to send it to me. Thank you, Dad. Some people are born boring, some live boring, and some even die boring. Fred managed to do all 3, and when he woke up as a vampire, he did so as a boring one. Timid, socially awkward, and plagued by self-esteem issues, Fred has never been the adventurous sort. One fateful night, different from the night he died, which was more inconvenient than fateful, Fred reconnects with an old friend as his high school reunion, setting off a chain of events that thrust him right into the chaos that is the parahuman world. Chipper zombies, truck driver wereponies, maniacal necromancers, ancient dragons, and one undead accountant trying his best to survive, because even after it's over, life can still be a downright bloody mess. So excited to finally read this one. Thank you to everyone who recommended it to me over the years. Looking forward to it. Blood Herring by E.H. Drake. Book 1 of the Blood Herring trilogy. This book was sent to me by the author, who autographed it for me. Thank you. And also Christmas wrapped it. It was wrapped up for Christmas. Why did the vampires hide for so long? It's been 3 years since the massacres, and Detective Gabriel Collins still doesn't know the answer. They took everything from him, and he'll never know why. until finally Gabe has his chance. A real vampire murder, a chance to put one of the bloodsuckers away. But when a vampire saves his life, Gabe doesn't know what to think. How can he work with one of the monsters responsible for all his suffering? Lily just wants to know why a vampire drug is flooding Portland. The last thing she needs is to cross paths with the police, but when her identity is exposed to the vampire detective, she's forced to keep her enemy closer. Will they be able to save their city, or will their own biases ruin everything? An urban fantasy, a vampire mystery, another mystery I could have put up for the running. We're going to have to do a mystery round again very soon. Thank you. The Afterlife of the Party by Marlene Perez. This is another new book. It just came out last year. Love sucks. I didn't even want to go to the party. Seriously, I'd rather have stayed home with my librarian witch grandmother and her mystical book club than go. But my best friend Skylar begged me, so I went. And it was the worst party of my life. Actually, it was the last party of my life. Not only was there something very strange about the band, but the lead singer bit me afterwards and then took off with Skylar. Now I'm chasing down a band of dangerous vamps with my best guy friend Vaughn, the boy I've been secretly crushing on forever. But anything can happen on the road. I thought all I wanted was for things to change with Vaughn, for him to finally see the real me. But this wasn't what I had in mind. Let the afterlife begin. It's an entangled teen book, young adult vampire book. Even though this is new, just came out, I actually haven't heard anything about it, so I'm really curious. Thank you for sending it to me. The Hunger by Alma Katsu, which Stephen King calls deeply, deeply disturbing. That's a good sign. This book came out in 2018, and it's a Suspense Magazine Best Book of the Year, an NPR Best Horror Novel, and a Bram Stoker Award finalist. Evil is invisible, and it is everywhere. That is the only way to explain the series of misfortunes that have plagued the wagon train known as the Donner Party. Depleted rations, bitter quarrels, and the mysterious death of a little boy have driven the isolated travelers to the brink of madness. Though they dream of what awaits them in the West, long-buried secrets begin to emerge, and dissent among them escalates to the point of murder and chaos. As members of the group begin to disappear, the survivors start to wonder if there really is something disturbing and hungry waiting for them in the mountains, and whether the evil that has unfolded around them may have in fact been growing within them all along. So it's the Donner Party, which was an actual historical thing, but with vampires, which may be a spoiler because it doesn't mention vampires, but that's the reason the person sent it to me. If you don't know what the Donner Party is, they were famous for getting lost in the wilderness in oldie times and having to eat their own dead family members in order to survive. So, they're known as cannibals. But now it's not just poor misfortunate sufferers eating their own dead to survive, but vampires. Belmorte by Bella Higgin, another new book, just came out this year. It's a Wattpad book, a young adult teen fiction. Belmort, one of 5 houses where vampires live like celebrities and humans are paid to be their living donors. While others came here seeking fortune, I came in search of my sister, who walked into Belmort 5 months ago and never walked out. However, the secrets about this world have proven to be much bigger than I ever anticipated, and lurking around every corner are shocking insinuations about what happened to my sister. There's only one person who might have the answers I need, and the undeniable pull I feel toward him is terrifying. Edmond Dantes, a vampire and my mortal enemy. The harder I try to resist him, the further I fall under his spell. And in one instant, my life is irrevocably changed. My past becomes prologue, and my fate becomes sealed behind these doors. Belmorte has spoken, and it may never let me go. I wonder if it's supposed to be the Edmond Dantes from the Count of Monte Cristo. Maybe it's just supposed to be an homage to him. But that would be cool if Edmond Dantes became a vampire and then, seduced this teenager, I guess, in this glamorous house of vampires. Dowry of Blood by S.T. Gibson, another book I've been hearing a lot about for a very long time, so I'm very glad to finally have a copy of my own. This is the re-released copy, which just came out this past fall, because this book was a self-independent published book before, and it did so well that it got picked up by this publisher, and it came out with a new version, an updated version. That is something that very rarely happens, so this book must have been popular. This is my last love letter to you, though some would call it a confession. So begins the tale of Constanta, first bride of Dracula. So begins a tale of obsession, desire, and control. So begins her revenge. Saved from the brink of death by a mysterious stranger, Constanta is transformed from a medieval peasant into a bride fit for undying king. But when Dracula draws a cunning aristocrat and a starving artist into his web of passion and deceit, Constanta realizes that her beloved is capable of terrible things. Finding comfort in the arms of her rival consorts, she begins to unravel their husband's dark secrets. With the lives of everyone she loves on the line, Constanta will have to choose between her own freedom and her love for her husband. The bonds forged by blood can be broken only by death. So Dracula's three brides. This is about the first of his three brides, and sounds like she actually loves Dracula as her husband, and she has to work together in the arms of the other two brides. I don't know if that's a queer thing or if they're just like gals being pals, but that sounds interesting. I love retellings and reimaginings of classic novels. Yes, please. Court of the Vampire Queen by Katie Robert. This is the Barnes & Noble exclusive edition, which includes special content, and Oprah's Daily for the Electric Idol says addicting and delicious. It contains 3 stories that looks like they were previously published, and now this is the collected edition, just came out this year. 3 powerfully alluring vampire men and 1 queen to rule them all. All Mina ever wanted was to escape her father's control. Half human, half vampire, she lived eternally torn between 2 worlds, never fully experiencing the pleasures of either, until her father chose her as a pawn in his latest political move, gifting her to the darkly powerful and dangerously seductive Malachi Zion. Malachi is not a vampire to be trifled with. He rules with an iron fist and has a reputation for the darkest of sins. But the longer Mina is with him, the more she realizes he's not the monster she first thought. And as fear bleeds into lust, then trust, then something more, Malachi opens Mina up to the world she never knew could be hers for the taking, including the love of Malachi's 2 closest friends and companions. Now, surrounded by all 3 men, the center of their shockingly seductive world, Mina may finally have the power to face down her father and take back the life and crown that by all rights should be hers. There is a content warning in this book. Oh, and it's illustrated. That's cool. Court of the Vampire Queen is a dark and incredibly spicy book that contains dubious consent, blood play, patricide, pregnancy, blood, gore, murder, explicit sex, vomiting caused by pregnancy, discussions about abortion, abusive parent, father, historical, off-page, attempted sexual assault, alluded to, non-graphic, and attempted drugging. So be warned. And it is published by Romance Reads. It is a romance novel. Silver Under Nightfall by Rin Chupeco, an author that I love, and this is her first, I believe, vampire novel. Also, just came out this year, just a couple months ago. Remy Pendergast is many things, the only son of the Duke Valenbon, though his father might wish otherwise, an elite bounty hunter of rogue vampires, and an outcast among his fellow reapers. His mother was the subject of gossip even before she eloped with a vampire, giving rise to the rumors that Remy is half vampire himself. Though the kingdom of Illyria barely tolerates him, Remy's father has been shaping him into a weapon to fight for the kingdom at any cost. When a terrifying new breed of vampire is sighted outside the city, Remy prepares to investigate alone. But then he encounters the shockingly warm-hearted vampire heiress, Zhao Den Song, and her infuriatingly arrogant fiancé, vampire lord Zayden Malik, who may hold the key to defeating the creatures. Though Remy knows associating with them won't do his reputation any favors. When he's offered a spot alongside them to find the truth about the rot, capital R, the mutating virus that's plaguing the kingdom, Remy faces a choice. It's one he's certain he'll regret. But as the 3 face dangerous hardships during their journey, Remy develops fond and complicated feelings for the couple. He begins to question what he holds true about vampires, as well as the story behind his own family legacy. As the rot continues to spread across the kingdom, Remy must decide where his loyalties lie. With his father and the kingdom he's been trained to defend, or with the vampires, who might just be the death of him. Kirkus Reviews says it's a deftly executed melding of folklore and reality grounded in contemporary issues. Yes, that is just what I want for my vampires. Thank you. Full to bursting with thrilling battles, vampire court politics, romantic tension, and witty, irreverent dialogue, Silver Under Nightfall is an enthralling read. Memorable characters and a story full of twists and turns make this an adventure not to be missed. The Empire of Fear by Brian Stableford. Nominated for the Arthur C. Clarke Award. It's from 1988 and is a fantasy novel. They could live for centuries, and their empires spanned the world. Men called them vampires. In 17th century London, Edmund Cordy, mechanician to the court of Prince Richard, seeks out the sinister formulae that sustain an aristocracy of vampires as immortal overlords holding whole continents in sanguinary thrall. His son, Noel, carries his father's dangerous knowledge into the dark heart of Africa and onto the fortress inside of Malta at the head of a company of soldiers of fortune. There, he awaits the coming of the awesome armada of Vlad the Impaler and Richard Coeur de Lion across the Middle Sea, when the battle lines are drawn up for the last great conflict between subversive science and sinister superstition. It's a fabulous adventure spanning 3 centuries and 3 continents, an epic feat of imaginative storytelling. Yes, it certainly does look very epic. Epic fantasy, to be sure. How many pages are in this? About 500 pages. Innocent Blood by James Rollins and Rebecca Cantrell, which is the sequel to Blood Gospel by the same authors, which we spoke about previously. A masterwork of international adventure, supernatural mystery, and apocalyptic prophecy, opens the next chapter in a world of shadow and light, of salvation and damnation, where the fate of the heavens is locked within a child of innocent blood. I'm not going to read the full summary because I don't want to give any spoilers for Blood Gospel. It starts off with a vicious attack at a ranch in California thrusts archaeologist Aaron Granger back into the fold of the Sanguines, an immortal order founded on the blood of Christ and tasked with protecting the world from the beasts haunting its shadows and waiting to break free into the sunlight. Following the prophetic words found in the Blood Gospel, a tome written by Christ and lost for centuries, Aaron must again join forces with Army Sergeant Jordan Stone and the dark mystery that is Father Rune Corza to discover and protect a boy believed to be an angel given flesh. I was also sent the 3rd book in this series, Blood Infernal. And there are 2 other volumes in the series, which I believe are short stories or novellas. They're a prequel to the first and then a prequel to this. But of the books, these are the 3. This was a former library edition. Thank you. Love recycling books. And I'm not going to read you the summary of this because I don't want to give any spoilers. Oh, but I see that the darkest of enemies is Lucifer himself. So very Bible-y vampire books. And now I have the full set. This last one came out in 2015. Dracula, the ultimate illustrated edition of the world-famous vampire play. So this is the vampire play by Hamilton Dean, which was based on Dracula and was actually sanctioned by Stoker's estate and was the play that the 1930s Dracula movie with Bela Lugosi was based on, which is very different from the book, changes a bunch of characters and story around. So this is the script for the play, which I had already. Someone else sent me that. Thank you very much. But this is an illustrated version of the script. Oh my God. Look at these pictures. Can you see this? These are great. Oh, hey. It's Bella. Some really cool images in here. Heck yeah. You can tell it doesn't take itself too seriously. The line at the top says fog, fangs, French windows. Fun. And it's edited and annotated by David J. Schall, our favorite Dracula scholar. I've talked to you about many of his books before. Check them out. He is amazing. The Blood is the Life by David Carrico. What if a nice Jewish boy turned? Well, if that's him, he doesn't look very nice anymore. Neon signs, giant guns, fangs, sunglasses, earpiece, leather jacket. Classic urban fantasy stuff. This just came out this year, another new book. Sink your teeth into the nightlife. Chaim Khan was just out for a night of fun, blowing off some steam the way a young man will. After the better part of a year spent in COVID lockdowns, he was ready to let his hair down at a nightclub. But the young woman he encountered that night left him with something to remember her by. She turned Chaim into a vampire. Soon, he finds himself thrust into a weird underground world of mysticism and enchantment as he navigates life as a newly undead, trying to reconcile his beliefs as an observant Jew with the new reality that has been thrust upon him. He's forced to deal with a lot of change, to his body, to his mind, to his perceptions, to his relationships, and even to his world. He finds himself in parts of the world he has never dreamed of being in, and he finds himself doing things he has never envisioned being part of his life. And if he can come to terms with these changes, this mild-mannered young man might just find himself a hero. I wonder what any of that has to do with this very action star-looking die-hard vampire on the cover. Kind of has like a Terminator look going on. We'll have to read it and find out. Witch's Night, The Bloodline Chronicles by Evelyn Silver, which was sent to me by the author who autographed it for me. Thank you. This is another new book, just came out this year. Sarai Reinhardt is a witch in hiding. Having inherited rare dual gifts of healing and necromancy from her late Jew witch mother and cruel German father, she needs to be constantly on her guard to avoid those who would use her. But even a skilled witch cannot run from everyone. After a mental breakdown sees her turn a mouse into a zombie, she is captured by an organization of witch hunters. To her great surprise, salvation arrives in the form of vampires, and one vampire in particular, the beautiful and deadly Knight Commander Marcel. Sarai is brought to the local vampire kingdom seat of power, a place no witch has seen and survived, and finds herself falling for her rescuer. Can she trust the vampire woman when Sarai's blood holds secrets that could change the occult world forever? So I guess Knight Commander Marcel is a woman. So it is a Jewish witch lesbian vampire story. She also sent me some very sexy bookmarks. Thank you. Witch, vampire, just kiss already. Ella, The Vampire Laws, Bloodlust and Soft Toy Collecting by Vince Staden. It's Dracula for the Instagram generation. When pampered millennial Ella Fitzwilliam wakes up dead in Transylvania, she begins to seriously question her life choices. Soon she finds herself wearing cloaks, sleeping in dirt-lined coffins, and on the run from a motley team of vampire hunters, which includes a YouTube star and a ruthless nun. As Ella wonders if she'll ever again be able to take a selfie, she consults a mysterious book that supposedly holds the answers to what it means to be undead. I guess that is the Vampire Laws. Meanwhile, dark forces gather to destroy her. Stripped of her wealth, privilege, and social media, and hunted across the wilds of Europe, Ella must slum it among the ordinary people and learn to fend for herself without buying her way out of trouble. For only in death does Ella really come to life. A funny, thrilling, character-driven adventure of bloodlust and soft toy collecting. Ella the Vampire Laws. This came out in 2012 when most millennials were still in their, mid-20s, so I guess this is not a 40-year-old millennial vampire who still collects soft toys, which I wouldn't know anything about. The dedication is from Mr. Stoker, OBS. From the bio, I can't tell if Vince Staden is also a millennial or was in 2012 writing about people of his own age, or if he's like a boomer or a Gen Xer writing about kids these days who can't stand them. I don't know what perspective this is coming for and whether it will be seen as actually relatable or condescending. Dracula's Guest by Amaya Tenchi. Vlad Dragula, Vampire Hunter? When Cammie, Seattle hipster, part-time barista, and college student, survives an attack by a pack of vampires, she resolves to learn more about what is going on in the shadows of her city. What she discovers is that none other than Dracula himself is involved in vampire abatement efforts. She asks to join forces and refuses to take no, absolutely not, for an answer. So Cammie ends up moving in, minds out of the gutter about that, folks, this isn't that kind of story. The unlikely duo bring their desperate skill sets together in an effort to put down a mysterious horde of Hollywood-style vampires and to find out where the bloodsuckers are coming from. A friendly werewolf for hire tags along to help out as little as possible. As werewolves do. Another brand new book that just came out this year and sent to me by the author and autographed. Thank you. When it says it's not that kind of story, I guess she and Dracula don't hook up. The Steins 3, Battle of Tavina by James D. Lee, the author, who sent it to me and also signed it. I am so lucky. All these autographs. The third book in the Stein series, which I've already talked to you about 1 and 2, and I don't want to read you the summary because I don't want to spoil the first 2 books for you, but this is the third and final chapter in the Steins trilogy. Just to remind you what the first one was about, it was about a lady named Mary who has to go to a faraway kingdom to live with her distant royal family, who are a bunch of monsters, mostly vampires, werewolves, and other undead creatures. How will she survive? How will she cope? How does it lead to armies on the attack in the third book? The Book of Shadows, Grim Tales and Gothic Fancies by Manuel Arenas, illustrated by Dan Sauer. This is a book of short stories and poetry, and it was sent to me by the author who autographed it for me. Way back in June was when he sent it to me, on June 13th. Good choice. Wow, I haven't talked to you about books since June. It's about time. Sorry, it took me this long. I'm so happy to be able to share these. The poetry and fables of Manuel Arenas are like specially gifted party favors on All Hallows Eve. Unwrap them, and you are regaled with black humor, shot through with light, elegant beauty, one breath from decay. For those who hunger for small bites of horror sweetened with black humor, this collection of grim tales and gothic fancies offers a satisfying repast. Morbidly playful riffs on the fairy tales of the Brothers Grimm, darkly exquisite gothic fables in both prose and verse, and hell-raising evocations of being both demonic and diabolic. A rich feast of horrors leavened with wit, Book of Shadows offers a delicious glimpse into the decadent heart of the mordant mind. There's a inversion of Sleeping Beauty with a touch of gothicism and hammer horror. There is the dark genesis and bloody destiny of a born werewolf. There is Gothylocks, a playfully sardonic update on Goldilocks and the Three Bears. The Dread Demon of Christmas makes an appearance in Greetings from Krampus, and in Nativity in Black, an Antichrist Mass story, we are presented with a dark celebration featuring all creatures great and infernal in a pageant quite literally from hell. Some really pretty illustrations in here too. Moving down the stack, you think this is it? Not even close. Necroscope by Brian Lumley and Necroscope 2 of Vampiri. I read Necroscope years and years and years ago, way back before I was ever the Maven of the Eventide, but I never read any of the sequels, so I'm very happy to have this one. For those of you who don't know, Eldritch horror meets international espionage. Since childhood, Harry Coe has been able to hear and talk to dead people. Through Harry, dead composers and writers reach new audiences. Dead inventors see their creations come to life. Seeking revenge after his mother is murdered by a psychic Russian spy, Harry is recruited by Britain's super-secret psychic-powered spy organization, E-Branch. Like Harry, Boris Dragonesi is the head of Russia's espionage firm, can hear the dead, but only if he is mutilating a corpse. Unaware that he's dealing with a master vampire, Boris has made a pact with an undead thing, and intending to conquer the West with an army of demonic warriors. Harry Coe and an army of the dead stand in their way. The battle will be epic. A lot of times in the past when people were like, oh, I don't like vampire books because they're all so girly, or they don't really speak to me. Are there any vampire books for men? This would be the one that I recommended to people. This first book in the Necroscope series came out in 1986, and there are 15 books in the Necroscope series, all for your enjoyment. 2 vampire books in the Buffyverse. Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Tales of the Slayer, Volume 1. It's a collection of original short stories based on the TV series. This came out in 2001 and contains a bunch of stories. Tales of Slayers over the ages. So they're not about Buffy, they're about past Slayers and their little stories. Into every generation, a Slayer is born, one girl in all the world to stop the creatures of the night. For us, that girl is Buffy Summers, a young woman who's been trained to give her life in the war against vampires. But Buffy is not alone. You see, there have been others, from the primal Slayer, who stalked the forces of darkness alone, to aristocratic Slayers holding court in revolutionary France, to the present-day chosen ones. Now, in a single action-packed volume comes the Chronicles of Slayers Past, girls who have laid the groundwork for Buffy and her kind. From ancient Greece and pre-World War II Munich to Florida in the 1950s, here are the stories of Slayers through the ages, each with a shared moral code and a commitment to conquer evil at any cost. As opposed to this book, which is brand new, just came out this year, Big Bad by Lily Anderson. Oh, it's historical fiction. It's set in 1999. Demondale, California, like Sunnydale, but a whole lot more evil. Step into this alternate reality where chaos reigns supreme. The mayor's sunshade has created permanent darkness over Sunnydale, fully opening the hellmouth once and for all. Now, the newly christened Demondale has become a safe haven for vampires, beasts, and all types of ruffians. It's never been better to be bad. Aspiring supervillains and super nerds, Jonathan and Andrew attempt to hold their own in a town full of monsters, where 1,100-year-old vengeance demon Anya is just looking for something to give her life purpose again, spending her days working at an evil juice bar. But soon, word gets out that there's a new big bad on the scene, one more powerful and more destructive than anyone who has come before. She is, of course, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and she's hell-bent on rooting out all of this reality's evil by any means necessary. Now, Jonathan, Andrew, and Anya must recruit a team of Demondale's most notorious villains, including Angelus, Spike, Drusilla, and even Ripper, the malevolent magic shop owner, in order to save their world. It'll be no easy feat to put their pride and differences aside and stop the worst thing that has ever come to town. Good. So this is cute. It's a Buffy the Vampire Slayer written from the point of view of the monsters, as if Buffy is the bad guy that they have to stop. That sounds really fun. And it's with all the characters you know and love. It's not just a bunch of original characters like most of the Buffyverse books we get. Very cool. And it was blurbed by Juliet Landau, who you know as Drusilla from the series and who joined us recently on Vampire Reviews. She says it's a fantastic addition to the Buffyverse that satisfied on every level. Now I want the sequel. This gorgeous, shiny, golden edition of Dracula by Bram Stoker. It's not annotated or abridged or anything. It's just the classic public domain text in a gorgeous binding by Chillerton Publishing. And it matches the beautiful version of Frankenstein I received before that I showed you. So now I have a matching pair. A lot of times I'll collect classic Gothic novels if I can get a full set of things. So we got like Dracula, Frankenstein, Picture of Dorian Gray, Phantom of the Opera. You know, I'll pour Wuthering Heights in there, Jane Eyre sometimes, Sherlock Holmes sometimes, Jekyll and Hyde, obviously. All those classics. But sometimes Dracula and Frankenstein is all there is. So as long as you have the pair, you are set. And these are beautiful. I love them. So shiny. And this very pretty edition of Interview with the Vampire by Anne Rice. This version came out in 2014 with this beautiful cover, and it has a picture of Oak Alley Plantation on it, which is where they filmed the movie in New Orleans. It was a sugar plantation, not an indigo plantation like in the book, but I actually went to Oak Alley Plantation when I went to New Orleans earlier this year, so I actually walked down that path. I stood right there. I touched these trees. I was up there in that house. Can you even see what I'm pointing to? It was great. It was fun. It was nice to go. And they had a wonderful exhibit on the enslaved people and what their lives were like, paying a lot of homage to them, which was really cool. The person who sent this to me also sent me a couple other Anne Rice books, which are not vampire books, but I'm going to tell you about them anyway, because everything Anne Rice is fair game in the Vampire Library. This is Exit to Eden, which is one of Anne Rice's erotica books, which got a major motion picture edition. There's a movie about it, and she wrote it under the pseudonym Anne Rampling, so it wouldn't get confused with her supernatural books. This is no supernatural creatures in this, just a very deviant sexual people. We all dream of the forbidden, but some of us make those dreams come true. In her best-selling vampire books, Anne Rice daringly exposes the erotic link between fear and desire, while Lestat and Rice's other charismatic blood drinkers draw us irresistibly to the dark side of ourselves. With the same mystery, menace, and intensity, Exit to Eden continues to explore the forbidden by taking us to the Club, a vacation paradise where no aspect of sexual pleasure is taboo. And just as the story of O shocked in the 60s by speaking aloud what had only been whispered, Exit to Eden gives voice to the sexual secrets of this decade, looking boldly at those who enslave themselves for love, and those who love only to be enslaved. Penthouse calls it a really good read. One of hers that I have actually never read. I know. The other one is Cry to Heaven, which is one of my favorite of Anne Rice's novels, and I read it back when I was in college. This is a historical novel about the castrati in old-timey Italy, singing opera, learning opera, and what their lives were like, what it was like to be a castrated person forced into the life of opera singing. A man does not stand for what has been done to him. Tonio Treschi, suddenly at the verge of manhood, is plunged into a nightmare, trapped in a murderous family plot, drugged, kidnapped, castrated. Guido Maffio, too young to consent, too young to fight, is ruthlessly sold to the maestros and cut at the age of 6. They were castrati, those male sopranos whose glorious voices brought them adulation throughout Europe. They lived and loved as idols, secretly sought out by both men and women, yet they were shunned and despised as monsters. Antonio's only thought was revenge. Yeah, this is a very cool book. Again, it's not supernatural in any way, no vampires, no demons, but it's about people who are outsiders, who feel monstrous. So just like Exit to Eden being about sexual deviants who are seen as monstrous for their BDSM practices, the castrati are seen as freaks who are both fetishized and shunned, and they are forced into it against their wishes, much like many of Anne Rice's vampires are forced into becoming vampires. And this is a revenge quest novel, believe it or not. After this singer spends very many pages learning how to sing and being an opera superstar, he also gets revenge on the people who forced him into this life. It's very fun. A graphic novel edition of Dracula, retold by Fiona MacDonald, illustrated by Penko Galev. Just a short children's version, full-color illustrations of the story of Dracula. I always have to get the graphic novel versions of Dracula or illustrated versions of Dracula. Any Gothic novel, children's books, comic books, or illustrated editions, I must have. And of course, at the same time, I got Frankenstein because you have to get them together. And the only other Gothic one they had in this series, or sort of, was Hunchback of Notre Dame. So I got that too. I wish they had had more Jekyll and Hyde, Dorian Gray, those kind of stories. But this was pretty much it for the Gothic. But of course I had to get the full set anyway of all the other classic novels that are in it. Great Expectations, Hamlet, Moby Dick, Oliver Twist. I have a bunch of good stuff in here. Not necessarily Gothic, doesn't really fit with my Gothic collection, but classics, illustrated comic books. Yes. I found all of these on Book Outlet, and they were all like $2 each. It was amazing. Go to Book Outlet. You can find some really good stuff there. These were my Christmas present to myself. Blood Hunt by Darren Garut. This book just came out in 2021 and was sent to me by the author. Thank you. Tyrus Bloodcoat has been summoned to Mars by his employer, Lucy Morningstar. I guess Lucy is Lucifer. Tyrus will be faced with the Herculean task of finding out just how much trouble one demon can cause as he follows a series of break-ins and murders across the city of Hellgate. And the author has told me that there are vampires in this book. And he also sent me the sequel, Cry Wolf, which he says there aren't any vampires in. I wonder if that's a werewolf. But, you gotta have the sequel to the first book. Thank you. Inside the Grey House by Kat Stark and Protector of the Grey House. These are part of a World of Contagion trilogy, which are the sequels to The Grey House, which I received previously, and now I have the full trilogy. Thank you. Don't want to read you the summaries of these because of spoilers, but I will remind you what the original was about. Natalia Gvedsky lives in a world much like our own. However, once you peer beneath the surface, you find werewolves, vampires, mages, and slayers. She learns early in life that not all slayers are good and not all hellspawn are evil. So these are her adventures, and Vincent Gray is a vampire that she gets mixed up with, and these are their stories. The last one in this edition, the last one in the series came out in 2022, so still very fresh. And now my collection is complete. Bloodlust and Bonnets by Emily McGovern, which I am so excited about. You will know Emily McGovern as the webcomic artist behind My Life is a Background Slytherin, if you've read that webcomic. Bloodlust and Bonnets follows the clueless debutante Lucy, the ruthless bounty hunter Sham, and the exuberant poet Lord Byron as they flirt, bicker, and slash their way through 19th century Britain in pursuit of notorious vampire Lady Violet Travesty. Both witty and slapstick, elegant and glory, Emily McGovern's debut graphic novel pays tribute to and pokes fun at beloved romance tropes, delivering a joyous, action-packed world of friendship and adventure. And I started reading it because I just couldn't wait. I didn't let myself get very far in case we want to save it for Vampire Book Club, but it is so fun and so cute. And if you know anything about Lord Byron, really hilarious. And this came out in 2019, and I don't know how I didn't know about it till now, but I'm very glad that I do. Harker, which is a graphic novel sequel to Dracula, by Lee Van Antwerpen and Douglas, and it has introductions and articles and afterwards by Dacre Stoker, who we know here, Ian Holt, Leslie Klinger, Alexander Gallant, and Elizabeth Miller, all famous Dracula scholars, Dracula experts, put their words into this full-color, beautiful graphic novel of a sequel to Dracula. For although his body is destroyed, Dracula's dark spirit still survives, and only his last remaining bride of Dracula, the Countess Draculae, can avenge and save him, as she arrives in London to take brutal vengeance against the hunters and their families. With an unliving allies, including the late Renfield beside her, the Countess is ready for war. But her opposition is fragmented with Seward in love again, yet addicted to morphine. Arthur, distracted by visions of his dead love Lucy Westenra on London Street. Van Helsing, haunted by memories of his son. Mina, finding herself alone with Dracula in her dreams. And Jonathan, visited by the ghost of Quincy Morris, warning him of dangers yet to come. As the devious plans of the vampire countess and her allies come to pass, Harker and his friends must find strength to fight back from the brink of despair, taking on a quest that forces them through a variety of familiar locations, including Purfleet, Piccadilly, Whitby, Munich, and ending with fire and blood on the Borgo Pass, the very place that Bram Stoker's novel began. This came out in 2009, but I have never heard of it till now, so thank you very much for sending this to me. I'm very, very intrigued. And the art is really, really cool. Have to add some more vampire books to the shelf. Hold on, one sec. Gonna restock. You thought I was almost done? Not even close. Astral City by Kurt Busiek. Confession. With an introduction by Neil Gaiman. This is another graphic novel about vampire things. The world of Astro City is an internationally famous world of wonders, of noble superheroes and sinister villains. But the city has a darker face, one that's only seen after sundown. And it's that city, a city of shadows and monsters, where nothing is quite what it seems, that teenage Brian Kinney encounters when he arrives in town with dreams of becoming a hero himself. To realize his dreams, he'll have to learn to understand this dark city, or risk being lost forever in the shadows. It's the best superhero comic book being published today, period, says Wizard, the Guide to Comics. When was today? Today was 1997, so this is some 90s superhero comic with a vampire twist. George Romero's Empire of the Dead, Act 2, which is zombies versus vampires. I had previously told you that I had Act 1 and Act 3, but I was missing Act 2, so the same person who sent me these sent me Act 2. Thank you. Now I have the whole set. Now I can read them. Looking forward to this. Witch Blood, a new comic that just came out last year, 2022. You can see it's got vampires on the cover here. They all look like vampires. I love the colors. It's called The Unholy Love Child of Sailor Moon and Near Dark. There is a combo for you. A modern Wild West road trip about a witch named Yona cruising the Southwest as a band of bloodthirsty biker vampires, the Hounds of Love, hunt her scattered coven for the source of all magic, witch blood. Intriguing. Love that comic book smell. Philadelphia, Volume 2. When I told you about Volume 1, Philadelphia is decimated by one of the most brutal bloodbaths in history at the hands of John Adams and his legion of vampires. I'm not going to tell you any more because this has spoilers for the first volume, but now we have the second volume. Very pretty. This one came out in 2021, so still pretty recent. The Carpet Merchant of Constantinia, Volume 2, which we read Volume 1 for Vampire Book Club a couple months ago, and now I have Volume 2. I love Volume 1. Can't wait to see where the story goes. This was one my father sent me for Christmas. This is a big, chunky graphic novel. It is not cheap, so it's on my wish list for a while. It was like $35 plus shipping because you can't just get it from anywhere. This is a UK publication, so getting to America is a little bit pricey, but it is worth it. Also exists as a webcomic. If you don't want to pay the money and just want to go read it, you can just go find the webcomic, but the book is gorgeous, and I'm so very happy that I have a hard copy. This book ended with the vampire in 17th century, and he was just kind of living his life with the people he knew as a mortal, and now that time has passed and he's moved on past his mortal life onto adventures into the future. So I'm really curious to see what the vampire does and where he goes now that he's living his full vampire life without any attachment to mortality anymore. By Ramina Yee. Love this. Check it out. Get the hard copies if you can, or just read it online in the webcomic. Worth it. Vampires of Blinch by Daniel Pinkwater with pictures by Aaron Renier. This came out in 2020 and is a children's book. And it's got like some very complex illustration about these vampires that live in this town of Blinch. Welcome to the wild world of Blinch. Here you'll abandon everything you thought you knew about vampires. With this caring look at a village not so different from our own, we hope the reader will get to know more about vampires and see that they are not so different from us. It's true, a certain amount of biting happens, but a nip on the neck may just be a vampire's way of saying, hello, let's be friends. Learn how to spot a real vampire. Discover how vampires seek their entertainment. Witness vampire mass transportation. Aw, it's so cute. Yes, vampires are for all your children. Indoctrinate them young. The Summer 22 copy of Horror Hound magazine, which has a focus on Dracula and the Universal monsters. They have some great figurines that come and go throughout the decades, and I have several of them from the 90s, but now we're looking at the new 2020s version, which I want. I want them all. Did you see that they have the Ninja Turtles crossovers with Universal monsters? And the Phantom of the Opera is Casey Jones. He's not one of the turtles. But yeah, we get a lot of different cool figurines in here. Thank you. I love looking at this stuff. And one day I too shall have all the toys. The Vampires of History by Donald F. Glut. Count Dracula Society and Academy of Science Fiction, Fantasy, and Horror award-winning writer. He is a world-recognized authority on monsters who has lectured extensively around the world. He is a recipient of the Anne Radcliffe Award for his nonfiction writings on the subject. He is also an award-winning director whose films include Dances with Werewolves and Tales of Frankenstein. 50-plus authenticated accounts of the undead who returned from the grave to drink human blood. Authenticated accounts. So, yeah, real vampires. The groundbreaking classic, back in print at last. Oh, when was it in print before? This came out in 2021. And the original version was 1971. So yeah, a reissue. Now, for all of us to read, it has kind of like a self-published feel to it. But you know what? As long as we get this text, this copy, I'll take it. From the cobblestone streets of medieval Europe, across the vastness of Asia and the jungles of Africa to the haunted forests of New England in the 20th century, the author brings his researches to life over 50 narrative case histories. A fine introductions to vampire tales from history, it reports on the alleged facts in each case, making no judgments on their veracity, leaving the reader to decide. A good survey of vampire lore, many of those recorded here were new to me, says Goodreads. So accounts of historical, supposed vampires, nonfiction book, just a great reference for looking up all those people that, maybe you want to base some of your vampire fiction on a little bit. It happens. Stephen King's Danse Macabre, which is his nonfiction book. It's a thesis on the writing of horror and includes a section on his thoughts on vampires and his experience writing Salem's Lot. So a good reference if you like to know more about Stephen King's thoughts and feelings and ideas about writing horror. And this came out in 1981, so these were his thoughts as of then. 1981 Stephen King. This is a cool book. It is the New York Times Book Review, 125 Years of Literary History. And the person who sent it to me marked all the things they thought might be interesting to me, all the things on vampires or any of the other things I like. Like he marked the Sherlock Holmes section. There's a Dracula part. Very cool reference book on all of literary history. I'm assuming Western literary history, given that it's the New York Times. But, I'll take it. I love books about books. With scores of stunning vintage photographs, many of them sourced from the Times' own archives, readers will discover how literary tastes have shifted through the years and how the New York Times Book Review's coverage has shaped so much of what we read today. Now we're getting into the non-vampire books, but since you were so good as to send them to me, and many of them have spooky themes to them, I'm still going to share them with you. This is Lon Chaney Speaks by Pat Dorian. As you know, Lon Chaney played the original Phantom of the Opera in the 1925/29 Universal Phantom of the Opera film, as well as many other famous monsters. Between pictures, there is no Lon Chaney. I'm a lifelong fan of 1920s films, and so for me, this book is a dream come true, a thoroughly researched, lively, empathetic biography of a screen icon who haunted my childhood. Lon Chaney was wholly devoted to, immersed in, and perhaps engulfed by his art. This fascinating tale is lovingly told, chock full of details, and snappily rendered with nods to classic cartooning throughout. If you're interested in Lon Chaney's life, it is a cartoon graphic account of his life as a biography. I saw the Phantom section. There he is! Krampus the Yule Lord by Brom, who also wrote that What If Peter Pan Was a Literal Dark Fae book. Now he has one about Krampus the Yule Lord. Cool. It's a modern, fabulous tale of the Krampus, the dark enemy of Santa Claus. So a fiction book about the Krampus himself. Kind of reminds me of like Grendel or something. Very cool. Merry Christmas to me! You Are the Classics, Frankenstein, Your Classics, Your Choices. It's a Frankenstein choose-your-own-adventure book. And I don't know if a version of Dracula like this exists. I found this, again, on Thrift Books for like $1.50, and it was the only one they had. It's a Penguin book. It's part of a series, but because it's Thrift Books, which is where books go to die and be buried, it came out in 2021, so I don't know what else was in the series. They didn't have it. I don't know if I can find it, but I got the Frankenstein one because I had to. Frankenstein, Choose Your Own Adventure. I wonder if the monster will love me. Dust and Grim, which is Chuck Wendig's new spooky middle grade book about kids who work at a mortuary for monsters. I don't think there's any vampires in this book, which is why I didn't include in the vampire section. But if you like spooky middle grade fiction, get your teenagers indoctrinated young. Mortuary for Monsters. Does it get any better than that? This is really cute. This is Wednesday's Library from the Addams Family. Delightfully dark quotes and gothic tales from one grim girl. So the idea is that this is Wednesday Addams' diary, and she's collected her favorite quotes and ideas in this, along with some really cool illustrations. So she's got quotes from Edgar Allan Poe, quotes from Emily Dickinson. There's quotes from Dracula, along with like her thoughts and feelings about them in pictures. So there's the "For the Dead Travel Fast" line from Dracula, and she says, "This warning almost makes Jonathan Harker turn around and leave Transylvania. I personally would have taken this as a compliment." Of course you would, Wednesday. If you've watched the new Wednesday TV show, this is not at all in any way related to that. This came out before that. In 2019, it is a HarperCollins book, and it was just really cute. Everyone knows Wednesday Addams. She's dark, twisted, and perfectly peculiar. But do you know what inspires her love of all things creepy and kooky? Take a journey through Wednesday Addams' reading list in this literary collection of spine-tingling quotes and nightmarish poems. This collection is the perfect gift for fans of all ages that includes quotes from Edgar Allan Poe, William Shakespeare, Mary Wollstonecraft Shelley, alongside Wednesday's deadpan commentary and some perfectly strange illustrations. Very cute. Hamlet is one of my favorite plays, Wednesday said. It's so gloomy. It has so many ghosts. Wednesday, a girl after my own heart. Garlic and the Witch by Bree Paulson, which is a sequel to Garlic and the Vampire, which I've already told you about, another full-color graphic novel. Garlic is so cute, sent on missions that she never quite feels ready for. I love this artist's art style. I love her little anthropomorphic vegetables. They're so cute. You should follow her on Tumblr and Twitter because she shares so many cute drawings of just like plant people and vegetable people, and they're really cool. The vampire is back! The vampire's in here! I thought it was just a sequel without the vampire, but no, he's back! Yes! So this is a vampire book. Read it now. Get it now. Make sure you get them both. If we read this for Vampire Book Club, we will read them together. We'll do it as a set. Another copy of Frankenstein. We're getting this is not Frankenstein Library, but this is beautiful. Look at this. It's got gilt pages. This cover is textured. It has like the lightning bolts are raised with the castle. Beautiful end papers. Oh. And it's got illustrations inside. Beautiful. Love fancy copies of classic public domain novels. This is by Harper Muse, and it just came out this year. Beautiful. Thank you. The Daughter of Dr. Moreau by Sylvia Moreno Garcia. We read her vampire book, Certain Dark Things, for Vampire Book Club, and this is her latest Gothic novel. I also loved her novel, Mexican Gothic, which did not have any vampires, but was still very dark and spooky. And this is about the daughter of Dr. Moreau, who you will know from the famous book, The Island of Dr. Moreau, who vivisected animals to turn them into animal people that had thoughts and feelings and were just walking horror abominations. It's a really great book. And this is a reimagining of what he would be like in this setting and about his daughter. The Many Deaths of Lila Starr, another graphic novel, not about vampires, but it is about an incarnation of death. And you know I also collect books about personified death, so thank you. I'm looking forward to this. Humanity is on the verge of discovering immortality. As a result, the avatar of death is cast down to Earth to live a mortal life in Mumbai as 20-something Lila Starr. Struggling with her newfound mortality, Lila has found a way to be dropped in the time and place where the creator of immortality will be born. Will Lila take her chance to stop mankind from permanently altering the life cycle, or will death really become a thing of the past? Love stories about death possibly losing its purpose. Yes. Thank you. Speaking of death, this is a collection of Death by Neil Gaiman. These are the comics, the Death collection. So this is all of Gaiman's tales starring Dream's older sister are gathered here in a single definitive collection. Skelly, the skeleton girl, not vampire related, but how could I not tell you about Skelly? A little skeleton girl finds a bone. Whose is it? It doesn't belong to her fish, or her pet bat, or her man-eating plants, or anyone else, she asks. But when she finds out whose bone it is, she gets an especially big surprise. What is Skelly the skeleton girl's big surprise? Read it to find out. Look at these illustrations for the children. Yeah, this is for the children. I've got volume 2 and 3 of the Lore Olympus webcomic now. Yes! I had volume 1. I shared that with you previously. This is a very long webcomic, which is being published in print form. You can read it all online as a webcomic, which I have. It is free. It is on Webtoons, but if you want the book for yourself, you have to get the giant, beautiful edition. Volume 3 is far from the last volume. It will keep going forever. Those were sent to me by my dad as belated birthday gifts, but I also got the Barnes & Noble exclusive edition sent to me by one of you. Thank you. Now I have 2 sets, which I also have the Barnes & Noble exclusive edition of volume 1, so like the set is complete. I love it. The exclusivity is different covers and stuff. Very beautiful. Death in the Maiden story, Hades and Persephone's story, not vampires, but anything about death and immortal people falling in love counts. Also sent to me was this Lore Olympus hat. It's so cute. Thank you. Poe, Stories and Poems, a graphic novel adaptation by Gareth Hines. I have a lot of graphic novel adaptations of Poe, and I will never stop collecting them. Let's see. I wonder which stories they chose. They did Mask of the Red Death. Of course they did. What else? Cask of Amontillado, Annabelle Lee, Pit and the Pendulum, Telltale Heart, The Bells, The Raven. Yes, all the spooky gothic ones, which are the ones I love best, though Poe wrote much more other kinds of stories. He wrote a lot more comedies and sort of like sci-fi sort of things than Gothic. Gothic was actually his sort of smallest section of what he wrote, but what he's most famous for, what I love him for. But if you want to know more about Poe's actual writings and all the things you didn't know Poe, I wrote a video for the PBS series It's Lit with Lindsay Ellis and Princess Weeks, and it's been online for like over a year now. So if you haven't watched that thing I wrote about Poe, I'm not in the video, but I wrote the video. You can watch that and learn things you never knew about Poe. But yes, I do love his gothic spooky stuff, and I will always collect graphic novel versions. And this has some really interesting art. It's not like thought bubble graphic novels. It's like it has the book below it with illustrations above. And I don't think it's abridged at all. I think it's the full stories. Continuing Poe, I have Grizz Grimly illustrates The Telltale Heart and Other Stories. I had a previous version of Grizz Grimly's illustrations, Tales of Mystery and Madness. This one did have some of a less gothic stories, Mystery Madness, Black Cat, Mask of the Red Death, Hop Frog, which is not one you see often, and The Fall of the House of Usher. And they are, it's not a graphic novel, but it is heavily illustrated with lots of pictures throughout. I think I may have shown this to you already, may not have, but now I have his other version with The Telltale Heart and The System of Dr. Tar and Professor Feather, The Oblong Box, and The Facts in the Case of Mr. Vladimir. Again, Grizz Grimly's iconic art style. I love him, and these are the full text of the stories illustrated. I wouldn't say for children, but, you know, for everyone. Love his art. Oh, it's for Team Simon & Schuster Publications, so I guess it's technically for teens, but it's Poe. Poe's for everyone. This was a really cool find when I was at a used bookstore when I went up to New York for a friend's wedding earlier this year. This is the illustrated poetry of Edgar Allan Poe, art by Edmund Dulac. This came out in 2001, and the art is just so beautiful. It's kind of full-color illustrations with a lot of his poetry. Oh, I love this one, The Grim Reaper. Yes, beautiful. I don't know where you can find this. When I found it at that used bookstore, I looked it up online to see, like, you know, if maybe I could find it at another used bookstore. But no, I could not find it anywhere else, so I had to buy it at that used bookstore. Because, you know, it only came out in 2001. It seems hard to find. Very happy to have found this. Continuing Poe, this is Edgar Allan Poe's Gothic Tales. It's a cute little volume. What do we have in here? McZenderstein, The Mask of the Red Death, and The Telltale Heart. Classics. McZenderstein isn't one you usually see often, so I'm glad that's included in here. Just a nice little skinny pocket volume of Poe's stories with some really cool art on front. This guy looks very Phantom of the Opera. I'm assuming that's supposed to be the Red Death, which the Phantom cosplayed in the original novel. So, you know, if he can do it, it counts. And to go with it, this tiny edition of Mary Shelley's Gothic Tales. Did you know she wrote Gothic Tales other than Frankenstein? It's the immortal, and ghosts. What of ghosts with beckoning hands and fleeing shapes? I have never actually read any of her stuff other than Frankenstein, so I am looking forward to this. Small, accessible, very cool illustrations. I wonder if there are other books in this series. Who else is there? Gothic Tales. This came out in 2022, so pretty recent, so maybe more are coming. The October Country by Ray Bradbury, which is a collection of his, like, spookier stories. You thought he only wrote sci-fi? No, he wrote spooky stuff, too. And, like, the beginning page says The Grim Reaper. You know I gotta have it. Thank you for sending this to me. Sobbing wildly, he rose above the grain again, and hewed to the left and the right, and the left and the right, over and over and over, slicing out huge scars in green wheat and ripe wheat, with no selection and no care, cursing, swearing, the blades swinging up in the sun and falling with a singing whistle down. Bombs shattered London, Moscow, Tokyo, and the kilns of Breslin and Buchenwald took fire. The blades sang, crimson, wet. Mushrooms vomited out blind suns at Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The grain wept in the green rain, falling. Korea, Indochina, Egypt, India trembled. Asia stirred. Africa woke in the night. And the blade went on rising, crashing, severing, with the fury and the rage of a man who has lost and lost so much that he no longer cares what he does to the world. Grim Reaper indeed. With illustrations all throughout the book. Gorgeous. Thank you for saying this to me. These books are all from the 40s and 50s, but the first edition of this collection came out in 1955, and it kept being reprinted until this reprinting, which was the 1989 reprinting. This stack of a matching set of books, which goes with this stack I previously received and told you about. So in the ones I already had were Dracula, Frankenstein, Villette by Charlotte Bronte, Picture of Dorian Gray, Wuthering Heights, and The Hound of Baskervilles. Gothic novel classics. Love a matching set. And now to add to it, I have some Charles Dickens, Tale of Two Cities, Bleak House, Great Expectations, also The Women in White by Wilkie Collins, and The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes. So pretty. I love matching sets. That's it for the books, but I also got some movies. This is My Best Friend is a Vampire, which I have never actually watched. Looking forward to finally seeing this one. Vampirism isn't all the horror it's made out to be. It's just an alternative lifestyle. You drink a bit of blood and get to live 10 times longer than anyone else. Nothing to it. At least that's what Jeremy Capello thinks when he gets a deep love bite from a hot date. Before he knows it, his reflection in the bathroom mirror has vanished, they can't stand the smell of garlic, and he's developed an overwhelming passion for raw steak. Things don't seem too bad until the arrival of a manic vampire hunter, Professor McCarthy. He's staking out Jeremy, and the future doesn't look so bright. Anything can happen, and it does, in this hilarious comedy that gives a whole new meaning to the word nightlife. 1988, classic 80s dude comedy, My Best Friend is a Vampire. It includes a trivia track. Bitten, starring Jason Mewes, from 2007. Love Sucks. Jason Mewes stars as Jack, a night shift paramedic in search of the perfect girl to resurrect his love life. Enter Danica, a beautiful, mysterious woman who hides a deadly secret in an insatiable appetite for more than just romance. Sexy, gruesome, and darkly comedic, Bitten is a clever blend of horror and comedy so delicious you'll want to sink your teeth in it. Another movie I have never watched and only heard the name of, don't know anything about, so curious to finally see this one. It is a Canadian movie, came out in 2007, and this DVD issue is from 2010. Widescreen. Doesn't look like it has any special features. It is rated R for pervasive language, bloody violence, sexual content, nudity, and some drug use. As vampires do. Trick or Treat from 2007. I think this might have been a made-for-TV movie originally. I'm not sure, because it says it's been modified to format to fit my screen. It's the best horror anthology in years. So it's a collection of shorts, one which does include a vampire. A creepy, darkly comic celebration of the scariest night of the year from producer Bryan Singer and writer-director Michael Darby. Trick or Treat takes the creep show Tales from the Crypt approach to nefarious new depths with 4 interwoven tales set on Halloween night. A high school principal moonlights as a vicious serial killer. The quest of a young virgin for that special someone takes a gruesome turn. Oh, Anna Paquin is the young virgin. A group of teens carries out a cruel prank with disastrous consequences, and a cantankerous old man battles a mischievous trick-or-treating demon. 82 minutes long, rated R. Thank you for this Halloween treat. Perfect for the season when you sent it to me. So sorry it's taken me this long to actually talk about it. I'm glad we are finally catching up on the Vampire Library, right? We are almost through, done with the books and movies. However, I have some things to share with you because I love the spooky gothic things, not necessarily vampire things, but things that are part of our interest group, such as this Buffy the Vampire Slayer game, board game. Yes, you can play Buffy versus Spike versus Willow versus Angel. In battle, there are no equals in this board game. Never even heard about this before. It came out in 2020, fairly new. Buffy the Vampire Slayer will never die. It'll be merchandised to the end. Play it in a board game. Thank you. Now, if only I had some friends to play this with me. This adorable Squishable, not to be confused with Squishmallows, their competitor, King Raven, to go with the Plague Doctor Squishables series. Love a Raven. Very cute. So soft. And then Squishmallows, the competitor. This is like a trick-or-treat basket. They did a whole series of Halloween-y Squishmallows, and every year, sometimes they're like too cutesy for me. I love the first season of Halloween Squishmallows they did, which had Dracula, Frankenstein, all your classic monsters. But every year they sort of like go down the bare bones. But this one, this skeleton cat thing, which you can like put your candy in, was chosen for me by my 3-year-old fledgling spawn. She went to the store and she chose it for me, so I love it. This tiny Grim Reaper keychain Squishable. I love him. This is a little ghost plushie That is the souvenir you get when you take a ghost tour in New Orleans, Louisiana, which is where I went for the vampire ball back in October, which I've already talked to you about a bit. This is from U.S. Ghost Adventures. There are many brands of ghost tours you can take, and this one is very special to me because I actually did not intend to take a ghost tour, but when I was there in New Orleans for the vampire ball, I was dressed up in my vampire costume, completely unrecognizable, didn't look like myself at all, and I was standing waiting for the taxi to go to the vampire ball, and someone walking by on the street stopped, recognized me as Maven of the Eventide from the show, even though I was wearing like a suit and hat, and said that he gave ghost tours, and he offered to give me and my friends a ghost tour later that night. We actually wound up going on Halloween proper and did the ghost tour, learned a lot about New Orleans history and all about the ghosts. It was very cool. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed this tour, and this was a little souvenir you got. And also, not part of the tour, but he told me that he also had worked as an extra on the Interview with the Vampire TV show. And he was in many scenes, but one of the scenes he was in was the Mardi Gras parade scene where they were tossing Mardi Gras beads, and he got to keep some Mardi Gras beads. And these are the beads. He gave them to me. You know what Mardi Gras beads look like now. They're like plastic, the super cheap ones that you can get anywhere. But back in the, 1930s, 40, whenever that scene is set, they were actual glass beads, and this is what they look like. And if you look in the TV show, you can see people wearing these kind of beads, and he gave me his, and I love them so much. Actual prop from actual Interview with the Vampire TV show from an actual actor who worked on that show and also gives amazing ghost tours. Thank you so much. Also from that trip, this is a hand-embroidered vintage lace handkerchief that was being sold by one of the vendors at the vampire ball. They always have local spooky vendors selling things. And this was bought for me by one of my friends who was there with me because we were going the next day to the funeral parade for Anne Rice, the second line parade, where they had a hearse and a marching band. And we went through the streets of the Garden District where she used to live in honor of her for her funeral. And at the second line parade, you're supposed to dress in all goth clothes. This is what me and my friends wore. And you're supposed to wave a handkerchief in honor of the dead. And it was really moving and a wonderful experience. And my friend bought us all handkerchiefs, and it has like little flowers on there. Speaking of Interview with a Vampire, I showed you this before, but this is my Interview with the Vampire journal. Just an empty journal you can write in. It is leather bound. This is from the official AMC merchandise store, not the Night Market. The Night Market is the store that AMC has that's only open after dark. I'm not sure whose time zone after dark, but you can't buy anything there between the hours of daylight. So this was before they started that. They had 4 items in the merchandise store at this time. This journal, a wine glass, which I've already showed you with the same logo etched on it, a hoodie, and a t-shirt, which I all have shown you in this video. You already saw them already, but I love this journal. Speaking of journals, also this one, which is a Dracula, just empty line journal, but look how pretty the cover is. It has the quote, "Listen to them, the children of the night. What music they make. Bat, roses, gorgeous." I love this style of journal. I get these journals and they're like, they're so pretty. I never want to write in them. I should do more writing, shouldn't I? We don't write in journals when we have computers now. They're too pretty to ruin. What if my ideas aren't perfect and then the journal's ruined? Write in your journals. That's what they're for. You can't take them with you when you die. If you die. Paul went to the Spirit Halloween store and got me some treats. He got me this wine glass with the skulls and roses, this bowl with the skulls. Good quality stuff for Spirit Halloween store. Yes, please. A Buffy the Vampire Slayer magnet. It says Chosen One. Buffy looking very pretty there in her comic art. A Day of the Dead origami books. Look at this paper. It's so gorgeous. All these skulls, all these origami projects you can do of spooky Day of the Dead stuff. Skulls, coffins, marigolds, everything you need. And I've always loved origami ever since I was a kid. I've always been a huge origami fan. I've never shown you any of my origami, have I? Yeah, I do origami. Things you didn't know about the Maven of the Eventide. Haunted Mansion. I have the dish towels. It says wall-to-wall creeps in the Haunted Mansion wallpaper. And then the matching towel. Haunted Mansion with the tassels. Too pretty to even use for dishes. The Disney Christmas ornament. They did skeleton dance merchandise this year. Disney did. You would think for Halloween, but no, it's for Christmas. The Silly Symphonies skeleton dance. One of my favorite classic Disney cartoons. I also got the table runner of this that I love. It is currently running a table right now, and I can't take it off to show you. You think this would play music for Silly Symphonies, but it doesn't. It's just skeleton dance. Much too good to put on the Christmas tree. God, what else do I have to show you? this bottle of soap my mom bought me because it has Dracula. It's Dreary Dracula soft soap, pumpkin scent hand soap. She bought it for me at Halloween, but she bought me 2 bottles. The other one I actually used, and this one I didn't get the chance to use before it was time to switch to red colored things for Christmas. You know, I like pumpkin spice year round, but orange doesn't go with my Christmas decor. So we're going to save this for next Halloween. Now this is one of my favorite Christmas presents I got. So when I was at the Vampire Ball, Vampire Cosmetics, which is a makeup brand, was selling their cosmetics there. They also sell them in the Vampire Boutique in New Orleans, French Quarter. And they were selling these eyeshadow palettes along with a bunch of other things. And they look like this. They are books. So this one is Dracula. And it looks like a copy of Dracula, a book, and then you open up the pages, and it has eyeshadows that are all named after characters from Dracula or concepts from Dracula. Like there's Harker, Lucy, Mina, Helsing, Danger, Renfield, Treachery, London, Transylvania, Dracula. Such pretty colors, so many colors, 3 pages of eyeshadows. And you know, as a Maven of the Eventide, I wear a lot of eyeshadow, and then they have cool illustrations on the facing pages. Dracula eyeshadow palette, but they have a lot more than just Dracula, and they're a bit pricey, so I was only able to get myself one, and actually the one I got myself while I was there was the Wuthering Heights one, because I love Wuthering Heights, one of my favorite books, and I like the colors in this one better. But then, for Christmas, or for Black Friday, Vampire Cosmetics was having a buy one, get one free sale, and as a gift, I got Dracula, Jane Eyre, and the 2 Cthulhu eyeshadow palettes, which is all of them. So now I have all the eyeshadow palettes that Vampire Cosmetics make that are their book palettes. They have other kinds of palettes too. Very good cosmetics, very cool, all spooky themed. Just go on their website, vampirecosmetics.com. You can find it. Wait for the sales because got some really good deals. Buy one, get one. They had all kinds of other sales. These are the Wuthering Heights ones I like so much with quotes from the novel. Beautiful colors, all named after characters and concepts that you would get if you read it, like Angel's Eyes, Obsession, May You Not Rest. Yes. Not only is it spooky and vampire-y and ghosty, but it's also makeup. Useful. I have the best people in my lives. They know what to get me for Christmas. Thank you. Thank you to all the books and things that I received for Halloween gifts, Christmas gifts, all the way back till June. The last time I did one of these Vampire Library videos for you, people sent them to my P.O. box. I received a lot of books from the authors themselves. Yes, please send me your vampire books. I love autographed books, and I love seeing what's new coming out in vampire literature and what the themes are and social issues that people keep bringing into vampire fiction. Like every year, every generation, each era we go through, and I feel like we've gone through 26 eras since 2016, vampires develop different meanings for the ways they can be used in fiction and as literary metaphors. And I want to see them all. How are vampires going to change in the future? You know, after the big vampire boom in post-2008 Twilight era, there were all these vampires, and then people got sick of vampires, and then there were no vampires, and people were like, are vampires dead? Have they been done to death? What's for the future of vampire fiction? And it just needed a break, right? Now vampires are back, taking on new meanings. We have all kinds of new vampire films, vampire TV shows, spooky gothic TV shows, because after the last 4, 5, 6 years we've had, we need a bit of vampires to analyze what we've gone through. And what better metaphor to do that than the vampire, based on the world as it is, the vampire. If you would like to send me vampire books, you can send them to my P.O. box. Otherwise, please just give me your vampire book recommendations in the comments of this video so I can add them to my wish list and keep on the lookout for them. I'm always finding great finds at used bookstores and stuff. But obviously, brand new vampire books that are just coming out, you aren't going to be able to find that way. So you have to get them fresh blood, fresh meat, yes. If you like these videos I make and want to help me make more of them, consider joining my Patreon. You can see all my videos earlier than anyone else. I always post them to my patrons first, and they get first watch before I make them public on YouTube. And if you pledge $10 or more, you get to put your name in the credits of my videos. Thank you very much to all my Patreon patrons. I could not make these videos without your support. I could not make the videos just by posting them on YouTube. It would be impossible. The only way I can make videos is by having Patreons. Thank you very much. I hope you received very many vampire books and things for Christmas. Tell me what you got. I want to hear about your Christmas, other holiday, Halloween, etc. gift hauls. Is that what we call them now? Hauls. Whatever you got that's vampire related, I want to hear about it. So give me your lists. Or things that you think I should add to my list, please. I'm the Maven of the Eventide, and Happy New Year. Here's to a fresh new year of vampire reading.